Right, we're back with episode 64, which has just been confirmed, with James Mishreki. I would say serial, proper D2C entrepreneur.
Something like that.
Is that a fair description?
I guess so.
And you're from up north originally?
Exactly, from Durham.
I went to uni in Newcastle. You went to...
Oh, yeah. Well, I went to uni in Newcastle as well. Yeah,
really? Yeah, that was where I originally came across you on LinkedIn, because I was like, who is this guy? I started reading about Skin and Me, and then I started diving into a bunch of other shit, which you have probably done more research on, but I had previously done some on. We then spoke a few months ago about potentially investing in space goods next time. And then thought we'd get you on the pod. I think we tried to make this happen maybe a few times before you had maybe context on, before we'd spoke.
Yeah, I think one of your team
back around.
had messaged me. This is actually the first, it's been a funny day today because I've always said no to podcasts and stuff like that. And I've decided to start doing some of them. So this morning I did my first ever one.
Oh, really?
And this is my first ever one being filmed. So this is world first.
Nice. Fucking hell.
Got in the deep end after so
exactly.
long. Yeah.
Another one next week.
What changed? What's the motive behind that decision?
I guess I've always just had my head down and I've always questioned what the value is in it. But I think I can be a good evangelist for my companies. And I think that you can spread the word, you can recruit talent, you can get great PR. And I think it can just be fun talking to interesting people about the stuff you're passionate about. So I just thought, like, why not?
100%. Yeah.
That's probably the opposite of most guests, because a lot of guests and people in this space, which is why I'm keen to pivot it towards, not that we haven't had good guests, but we've had some guests who have a bigger following than they have proper businesses, shall we say, which is always the case in entrepreneurialism and like podcasts and so on. But yeah, I just think, but we're trying to take it more seriously, get people that we can learn from. Well, certainly that's been the biggest benefit of the pod is I've met investors through the pod. Like literally 3 of my investors now came on the pod. That's how we met. We got very drunk together. We now do sober pods because it's midweek.
Yeah, you promised me when we spoke, you said red wine in the living room and we got Diet Coke now.
Yeah, I know. Well, Christ, we're on the lucky Saints again because I don't.
Look at us promoting these brands for no sponsorship, you know.
Exactly. Me and Ollie actually met rowing in Newcastle at Northumbria.
I went to Newcastle Uni as well, so full Newcastle room.
And then he was the cox, which is a funny story, being 6'2". He was the cox. We used to row together, and he was the cox in our national championships boat with 4 of us, and it was kind of chaos. And then he started running ads. Well, we actually had a brand together. Fuck. This goes back a long way. It's come full circle. We had a clothing brand together in uni when I was like 21. You were like 20, 19. I then left. He stayed. I thought he had sold his soul to the system and was going to go down a traditional path. We then re-linked about 3 years later when I was running the jewelry business and the neon light business before that one went wrong. He started running my ads, was like scaling things. And then has recently invested, a year ago, invested in Space Goods, my current business. And now he's on the pod.
Nice. So our issue is
it all started in Newcastle.
Brief people on who's going to be here. We just let them turn up.
How many years ago did you guys finish?
7 years ago, ish. I'm
25.
You're 26, are you?
I'm 27 now.
27.
How old are you?
Spring chicken. I'm 36.
Yeah, so you've had a less traditional route to e-com, I guess. So, like, obviously, it'd be good to kind of dive through that. I think it's obviously a very unique story. I imagine not many people have followed the same path in terms of poker to another business, then to D2C e-com. So, yeah, I wanted to dive into that really and hear a bit about the story. How did you, obviously professional poker player, be pretty interesting space, job, profession, and I'm sure a lot of relevant and interesting learnings for what you do now. But I know that's a big thing you push is like you felt like a lot. I've seen on your LinkedIn you say that a lot of business owners would benefit from playing poker. So how did you find that, and what was the story behind that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess to rewind even before then, I've always just been really entrepreneurial, always knew from a young age, even at school, always said that I didn't want to get a job. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just used to say I want to be a businessman. And like I'm sure you guys did, I was doing all sorts of little ideas in school to try and make money. Went traveling after uni. And while I was traveling, me and my friends at uni had gotten into poker. I loved it. I mean, even before I was 18, we used to go into the bookies down in Durham, used to put a jacket on and hide our school uniform. And I just like had a knack for gambling and I loved the buzz of it. And then I got into poker, and poker's a game of skill with luck involved, but it's just lumped into the same category as gambling, basically. When I went traveling, my friend and I, we were going around all the casinos. We had a lot of fun, so many stories, trying to like fund our trip. And then I didn't have a plan for what to do post-traveling, but I broke my back while I was away in New Zealand, had a really nasty accident on a ski slope and had to come home early. And when I got home, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Either like start a business, or I was tinkering with different ideas, but poker was just the thing that I naturally fell into. And you can be most people don't realize you can play poker for a living. And
I've literally never played.
I'm assuming most people probably think.
I'm always shied out of
thought you would have
invitations.
with a shirt like that.
Yeah, well, you think a lot of things.
I've dabbled, like, casually with mates, but I imagine a lot of people think there's only two. You either casually play or you play for millions. But I imagine there's a pretty large middle ground where you can still make a living.
Yeah, for sure. So I was basically starting from scratch. I didn't really have money at all, and it's an all-consuming lifestyle. You sit in front of your computer. It's quite nocturnal, and you play for crazy hours. You kind of have. You can have a pretty sloppy lifestyle because of the hours that you're going to bed. It teaches you a lot of discipline because you can lose your whole bankroll in one night, and then the next day you've got to bring your A game. And if you try and chase your losses, you're going to lose even more. It teaches you to get really comfortable just with the insane emotional roller coaster. I mean, at the time, for me, it was my whole livelihood was just going up and down. And then some nights you'd really lose it all, pretty much. And so it got me just very comfortable with risk. Yeah. To be a great poker player, you've got to just not be bothered by the money. So you've got to treat it as just, you can't think, oh, I've lost that pot, that could have bought me the following. You just got to, accept this is the way that we play the game.
Longer term thinking almost. And
yeah, exactly. You basically need to have a complete disregard for the money.
Yep.
And if you don't, you're a bad poker player. And it's going to come back to bite you. And so,
do you consider it gambling? Like,
well,
is it gambling to the extent that betting on horses is, or is that
no, not
skill?
at all? Because there's no
people say that.
there's no skill in gambling. If you imagine going into a casino, you can play poker in a casino, but you're playing against other players. Everything else in a casino, you get playing against the house.
Yeah,
and so you can't win against the house in the long run. It's not possible because the house has an edge. So the table games are complete gambling. There is no skill involved unless you're cheating. And poker, there is skill involved, and over the long run, the best players win. That's just how it is. But there is variance. So in the short term, you could lose, and think that the cards are against you. But it's just variance. It's just probability, basically. Yeah. So I did that for basically a couple of years. I mean, it sounds quite glamorous, but it's an emotional roller coaster. I was living at home at the time, and I guess I started out having these aspirations for that to be a long-term career for me. But as I got into it, I realized, the stimulation you get from the game is pretty damn limited, as you can imagine. You're just sat in front of a computer playing against people you never meet, and poker players have a habit of just living in their pajamas. I also realized that the game had been quite easy to beat in like the early 2000s when there was this poker boom. This guy called Chris Moneymaker, that was his real name, won the World Series of Poker, and he satellited into it for $10. So that showed everyone, oh wow, just anyone can win this. Yep. If you play your cards right. So poker really opened up, and the legislation changed in the US, and people were making money like really easily with some like pretty basic poker strategy. When I got into the game, the regulation in the US had changed, so a lot less. The player pool was smaller, so what we call fish, the easy money, the bad players, there was less of those. Poker training sites were like 2 a penny, so your average player was better and better. And I kind of realized I've probably got to play this for another 5 to 7, 8 years to get to a reasonable standard. Yeah. And even then, it's really freaking hard. Yeah. And it's a lot harder than it used to be. And I wasn't prepared to give up the bulk of my 20s doing that, basically.
Did you ever do any in person, or was it all online?
Yeah, I did. Used to go to Vegas quite a bit. I mean, it's funny.
Some good stories around that as well.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas, it is... I couldn't go for more than a long weekend now, but I used to go for like 3-4 weeks at a time. which is crazy thinking about. You guys been?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah.
I've never been, no.
But I've literally never even gambled in Vegas. I think I used to bet on I used to do matched betting when I was like 16. You ever try that? It's where you think you can win, and I would make like £400 a month. But then I got into trading oil derivatives and shit, and I remember losing like 500 quid on Christmas Eve and crying myself to sleep, and I said I'm never gambling again. I guess entrepreneurship became the next kind of gamble, but it's more controllable.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of crossovers like that, though. You know, you can think you're nailing it by 1 p.m. By 4 p.m. that day, it's the worst day of the year. And then by 6 p.m. you're like, maybe I've turned it around.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, just hearing you say a lot of those elements and a lot of those emotional elements and the fluctuations in your day, it transfers a lot to business. I feel like that, like even that detachment from finance from a daily to day kind of standpoint it's probably a net beneficial mindset to have. Obviously, you can't do it to the same degree. You've got to know your numbers, but I can see. What would you say? That was going to be one of my main questions. Is what do you count as kind of say top 3 transferable skills from that you would say like has really aided you in your journey so far?
Yeah, I think the comfort with risk is probably the highest one. So I just don't have something that your average person will see as risky. I just never have, because I've never had a job and I've always done my own thing. So just things don't faze me that in a business sense probably would faze your average
I'm
person.
Probably a lot more risk averse. In the way I run our companies, like I run it with large cash flow in the bank, like less risk taking.
He runs an agency. That's what I say. You got a balls to run a brand.
Yeah, but like, just how I've always operated. But I can see like I could definitely be riskier, and then you'd definitely move faster. And by taking bigger bets, you make faster progress. I feel obviously some of it won't pay off, but that's just the nature of the game. So I can see how that would definitely transfer well. Yeah. It's just like
Did you go to uni then? Sorry, or no?
Yeah, I did.
Did you finish?
Yeah, I finished. I haven't used the degree. I didn't learn anything. I did marketing management. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, the irony.
Soft skills though.
I did entrepreneurship for 6 weeks. Dropped out. Went back and did graphic design. Dropped out again, and then that was that.
How long did you do graphic design for?
A year. Actually, no, then I switched to advertising, but I was running Facebook ads at the time when they were telling me about print. So it was then I stopped going, and then we were running
I did
what
economics
became
and
the clothing
politics,
brand.
which is even less transferable than both of those probably.
Yeah. If I could have another life, I'd do economics, because I do find it interesting.
I find it somewhat interesting, but then I don't find like the uni structure of it. It's just so much like math models and like just health economics and like elements like that would just I've just never used. But yeah, I think that's the key if you're going to do universities, do something that you actually find interesting. I picked it just because I was like, I didn't know what to do, and it sounded like obviously it was a decent path to a decent career if you didn't drop out or switch into doing something for yourself. But yeah.
You asked 3 things.
Yeah.
Poker, I guess. Also, it teaches you to be much better at negotiation, because it basically is negotiating. You know, you're having to learn to go against your natural instinct, which is to display your emotions. You have to completely hide your emotions at the poker table, and otherwise people can read you, and then they can use that against you. And so it's quite similar to negotiation in the sense that you
selling, like sitting in awkward silences and just accepting that rather than
exactly. And also it's really intimidating in poker if you're running a big bluff, but you can't show that you're nervous and you can't show that you're weak, and you've sometimes just got to go with it. And as you guys know, if it's a really like challenging or meaningful negotiation that you're in, you've sometimes got to make a move that, you know, is this going to work out? I'm going to screw the whole thing up, but you've got to act confident and just roll with it. And probably also just like long-term thinking, because in the short term, variance really can work against you and it can be really stressful. But one of my principles is just like, always focus on the big picture, and I always know things are going to be all right in the end. And if you do the right stuff over the long run, it works out and it compounds. And in poker, you've just got to always keep thinking probability will play out, basically.
I can definitely see that transfer, even like now, especially now at the moment with encountering a lot of businesses that haven't adopted that mindset in the e-com space, and they're caught in a financial issue of thinking on too short a time horizon and not zooming out to a bigger picture, going into economic issues. So yeah, 3 solid.
I think that's the whole problem with
solid transfers.
I never thought long term when I was getting started. I just wanted to and because e-com can be so scalable compared to anything else, and it's probably the most, this generation of new money entrepreneurs, whatever, guys making like Wi-Fi money, which is just kind of the incorrect way of thinking about it. But, you can start, like Neon Beach was a great example. I scaled it too quick because I was so like revenue hungry and wanted the big numbers, but I didn't have the foundation. And I guess if I'd looked on a longer term, time frame, might still be here. But I guess I've learned that, and I'm thinking that way with this thing. So yeah, it's not growing as quick, but it's on much better foundations.
But you're in control.
Exactly, yeah. And I won't have stat demands from creditors at my door.
This time what happened?
Oh, it was a fucking mess.
It's very. Once you get sucked into that short-term mentality, it's then really hard to break it, I feel. You kind of start chasing your tail, which I feel a lot of people get into the problem.
It's because of social media.
When you start running into headwinds, and zooming out is important. But why did you stop poker? Was it just didn't enjoy the lifestyle, wanted to move to something a bit
I think
different?
It's just for a certain type of person. I love the game. It's one of my favorite nights of the month is I host a poker game at my home, and nice. It's great. So but now that my livelihood doesn't depend on it, it's a lot more enjoyable. I stopped because I just had much, much, much bigger ambitions than playing poker, basically. And I think you can easily fall into a trap of comfort. And like I said, I could have easily slipped into a few more years, but they're such crucial years that, I hung my boots up as hard as it was at the time, because I didn't have an alternative that was going to make me money overnight.
Yeah.
So it was hard to walk away from. But
and how far out of uni were you at this point? So you'd gone full-time poker?
Yeah, graduated in 2008, and then I played through to late 2010, about 2 years. I played full-time for, so I was about 2 years out of uni.
And then how does that become getting into the whole D2C space and businesses there?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't start in D2C. So in hindsight, I wish I did. But
it's going to be a question.
Yeah,
Why did you
in
choose
2012.
Yeah. So I'd been tinkering with all sorts of ideas. I'd been learning online marketing. I started had 3-4 microsites going to make AdSense money, stuff like that. On all sorts of stuff. I had this website called the homemadeCookieStore.com, which would make AdSense money from cookie recipes. Never baked a cookie in my life. So I'd just hire these writers to write these recipes. Who knows if they actually worked. And I started a little marketing agency, and I used to do SEO for people. And then I started this software business with 2 other guys, which was, it's still going today, but I sold out of it 5-6 years ago. And we used to compare retail pricing of all sorts of different websites to help companies compare pricing and outsmart the competition, basically. Yeah. So B2B, SaaS, but not SaaS in the sense that an intercom is SaaS. So it wasn't frictionlessly globally scalable, because there was a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes, because the way we did it was through web crawlers, and they needed maintenance and setup. So it was, we got the business to work, and it was basically effectively self-funded. We bootstrapped it basically, and it was a nice lifestyle business, but I wanted to take it to a level that my co-founder didn't, one of my co-founders, the day-to-day one, didn't want to. And so it was just inevitable that much like the poker, I wasn't prepared to spend another 5+ years of my life in that business, because I could see what the outcome was going to be. It's impossible to have a huge outcome with the plan that we had. So I guess from that, and I did that for a while, all through my 20s. And in hindsight, I wish that I'd ditched that business sooner. Yeah. But it is what it is.
Getting in the right boat. No matter how fast you row, if you're not in the right boat.
Exactly. I was working every hour of the day, so I'm going to make this thing work. But you know how it is. Classic story. First proper business, doing everything. And working hard, not smart.
Yeah, that's sunk cost mentality. It's hard again to when you're in it to make that switch, though, isn't it? Because you get that sunk cost of like, I've put so much time into this, even if it is the wrong vehicle. You're like, I'm so deep into this, can't even think about not sacking it off, but moving to something that probably would move faster and get
probably
you closer to
impossible
your end goal.
to get in the right vehicle from day one, though, isn't it?
Oh, 100%.
There's not many people. There's some,
learn.
but there's not many people. You got to fuck up a few times.
Or even
least
find your
trying.
passion. Like, you don't know what you're interested in. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you just make me think of some sort of idea to help like young entrepreneurs that are like 18 and better start their first thing, like a way for them to just test
Analyze.
or trial out or go to an event or some sort of course to test 10, 20 different types of business and just figure out what they're most passionate about or what their like business founder market fit is best suited to. Because you're right, it is really freaking hard to find it. And that's one of my biggest, if I could turn back the clock, I think the trajectory of my entrepreneurial career would have step changed if I'd picked the right thing at day one.
What the fuck is this? Space Goods, spacegoods.com, Rainbow Dust version 1, my newest entrepreneurial ecom brand venture. I spent 6 months in the trenches building this shit from scratch. We launched 6 weeks ago. What's it all about? The next generation wellness brand with a long-term vision to essentially consumerize the pending psychedelic consumer goods market, which might sound absolutely ridiculous. We're not quite there yet. The market's massively illegal. But what is this? Rainbow Dust version 1 is an all-in-one mushroom and adaptogenic blend designed to unlock your supernatural self. Essentially, experience a sharper focus, sustained energy, zen-like calm throughout the day. It's an all-in-one powder, tastes like fucking hot chocolate, tastes delicious, works great, looks great, feels amazing. Essentially, the broader concept here was to legally imitate a psychedelic microdose and, like I said, experience those symptoms. You can mix it with anything, brownies, bake brownies with it, mix it with your coffee, have it without coffee, replace your coffee, put it into a protein shake. It's super fucking versatile, it tastes great, it replaced the stack of supplements I was previously taking, but you need to try this shit. It would definitely change the way you work, get you into that deep workflow. I obviously think that myself. Plenty of 1,000+ first customers think the exact same shit. It's not just a pretty packaging, it actually works really fucking well. Keto, vegan, all that good shit. Trust me, you need to try it for yourself. Let's scale this shit to the moon. Spacegoods.com. Get on your Rainbow Dust subscription and see how you fucking feel. Let's do it for the boys. Spacegoods.com. Well, I was going to say, like, I've always been in e-commerce, but I've always chopped and changed between different things in e-com. I've never built a brand for even 3 years, let alone 5 years or 10 years. And if I had, but you know, might be very different. But I guess my thing was I knew I wanted to, originally it was design logos, then it was monetize design. So it was selling fucking t-shirts, then it was drop shipping jeans, then it became a jewelry business, then I started a fucking other thing. And you build the skills, but at least I was doing something that I was getting better at. So now I'm much better than I was 5 years ago, or 6 years ago when I went full time, 5.5 years ago. Whereas, yeah, I think the scary thing is the biggest risk, and people message me all the time at the back of the pod is, you know, how do I know what I want to do? And it's like, well, if you're stuck in a grad scheme, say you go and get a degree and, you know, get into a job you don't like, it's very hard to then find what you like doing because you're spending 10 hours a day working a job. Mm-hmm. Whereas I never, I guess not luckily, but fortunately, so we made it work with that clothing thing. It was the first bit of real money I'd ever seen. And then I left uni and jumped headfirst into entrepreneurship, which was always what I was going to do. I just didn't know, I didn't have the money to do it until then. And that was like, well, fuck it. Then I met people. And then when you meet other people, that's the biggest change. Because suddenly that becomes your world and you learn from them and so on.
Exposure to people, exposure to experience. You've kind of, I think your business interests have matured as you've matured. I definitely think that's a thing. Like what you're interested in at 18 is not going to be what you're interested in at 30, or very rarely. Your interests are going to change as well. So your desires and things that you want to work on are probably going to follow that. But yeah, I think it's hard to think of how you'd structure that. I know there's I think it's Antler. Antler do something. They're like a founders scheme where they get a big group of founders, then you pair up with someone there.
They're not a suitcase brand.
Maybe I've got the name wrong.
No, it is. There is some sort of incubator.
They do something like that.
Brand.
They pair you up with someone of similar interests, and you try and align on a vehicle and a business to start together, and then they provide you with like incubator funding, which is.
Mm-hmm. I know they did one called Entrepreneur First. They offered me a place on it, and but I turned it down.
There's one called Jumpstart. Don't know if you heard of that. It's for they call it like the 1% of graduates. So
Yeah,
I
we've
actually,
hired through it.
yes, I did a presentation to their cohort last week. I wasn't actually sure if I needed someone, but I thought interesting to see the sort of talent that's out there. And it's really weird because I wanted to go to Oxford Uni when I was younger because I used to be a rower and I thought I might get a rowing scholarship, but then I quit rowing and went through this weird wanting to be a travel YouTuber phase and whatever. I went to Northumbria. It wasn't quite the same. But now there's people they're all 90% are Oxbridge graduates, so they're very smart. But they're like pitching that they want to come and get a job working for me now. And it's just, the imposter syndrome is insane.
Really?
So I'm thinking these guys are way too clever. But then they're probably thinking, I would never have the balls to start my own thing like I've done.
That's who you want to
So
hire, though.
is
You
it
wanna
exactly,
hire people
yeah.
who are smarter than you.
But I guess they're all the sort of graduates that, you know, have a generally more entrepreneurial interest. And it's kind of similar because they would want to work very close to the founder in an early stage business where they can learn probably 10 times as much or 100 times as much as they would in a big corporate.
I'd definitely advise people to go work up in startups
Yeah.
if you don't know what you want to do. That's what I did. I did like a 12-month internship at a SaaS startup. Just got thrown right in at the deep end. Like
Yeah.
2 people on the marketing team, me and 1 guy. It's just like systems, operations, front to back finances.
Yeah, I completely
so much
agree.
faster.
I always get a surprise when I hire someone or just even talk to someone that has always been in the corporate world, because I've only ever had my own businesses and I've
Yeah,
never
same.
spent a day in a big established company.
Yep.
And when they're so surprised or like inspired by just a day in
Yeah.
the life of a startup, like, oh my word, it sounds so exciting. Oh, and yeah, I guess you get to know about them. Like, yeah, everyone knows everything.
Faster,
Yeah.
scrappier, more learning,
Yeah, yeah.
exponentially more exposure to things
Consistent, extreme anxiety.
than sat in a booth bucketed into some operational procedure where you're just doing like the same thing over and over and over again. Which is what I think they get to at that sort of stage.
You know, you mentioned the whole Oxbridge imposter syndrome. Do you think that, do you look at, if you're recruiting, do you look at the university that someone has been
Well,
at
it's
as
funny
a strong
'cause
signal?
Never.
I've only really started, I've been so shit at hiring. He's going to help me with this. He's much better. I'm very 0 to 1. I think I'm one of the best, not in the world, but that's my strong point. 0 to 1. You put me in a room for 6 months, I get anything to $1 million in revenue. Anything. It's going from 1 to 10 and 10 to 100, which I'm now, because my brain is fully formed at age 27. They say it happens at 25. I'm now finally aware that I actually need to hire people because anyone good is going to be better than me at the thing that they're doing. Because I'm very, very much generalist, but particularly I like the creative stuff most. I'm just not an operator. Don't enjoy it. So that's the first thing. I previously used to just not even think about hiring properly. It was always freelancers, agencies for everything. So what was the question again? I've gone off on a tangent.
I was asking.
Do I care about that?
No, it's like, do you view, now that you've got a different perspective and you at one point wanted to get into Oxbridge yourself,
Yeah.
like do you,
well, yeah,
do
it's
you
funny.
look at that as a strong signal?
I mean,
if you're looking at
it would
candidates?
signal to me that they are, and maybe this is just chip on my shoulder, it would signal to me that they're not an entrepreneur, which is either good or bad, because if they're an entrepreneur, they wouldn't have finished their degree, in my opinion.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think you look at like some of the people who founded some of the biggest companies in the world.
But I think they can be a good number too. I don't know if they're like a founder type.
A lot of the ones in the US go through 4-year degrees and leave and found, they go on to like an incubator and found.
Yeah,
massive
I mean, you
companies.
talk about like Harvard and shit then, yeah.
But,
Which I guess is similar.
I think like for me, we don't look at that for us. We've got like 60 people. I think if
This is your agency?
Yeah, two different agencies. I think if I was hiring 15 to 20 years ago, I would use it as a much bigger signal, or maybe slightly longer time period ago than that. Obviously, you'd be in a different industry and climate entirely, so you're hiring for different things. But I think it mattered a lot more before then. We don't really look at formal education at all. We hire very much for mindset, personality, culture fit for the roles that we're hiring for, and then anything technical, skill-based is like secondary to that, but still important. This would differ if I was hiring like a developer or something that requires like really high technical acumen. But I value like mindset and like willingness to learn, proactivity, exponentially harder.
I guess if they're through something like Jumpstart, though, you have the social proof of firstly they've gone through a process to get into the best uni, which is definitely one card on the table over like just, I don't know, going to Teesside uni, no offense. And then going through like an incubator like Jumpstart, they've gone through another process, which makes them suitable for startups apparently. So yeah, I mean something like that.
That's different. Yeah.
They're guaranteed to be at a baseline good. It's just whether they get on with you and understand the business, I suppose.
How about yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Do you look at education as a proxy for talent and hiring?
No, I'm the same as you in that all that really matters is, I mean, it depends on the seniority, but like the non-negotiables are that they are going to be a self-starter, they're going to take initiative, and they just get it and are a problem solver. And they're not going to, be a passenger. They're going to be like a driver in the business. That's the most important thing. It's a nice bonus, sure. If there's other ways to demonstrate that you're really diligent and committed and you can get stuff done, 100%. Like other than going to the best unis. So yeah, it's a tick, but it's like a bonus tick, basically.
Yeah, it's like third or fourth on the list for us. I think like our best staff members, both of them, well, other than like C-suite, high end, both of them didn't go to university, and they're both they're just the best by far. And I think you can use it, but I just don't know if it translates. It definitely doesn't translate to our industry as much as it would to others, because marketing you just fundamentally don't learn at university, I don't believe.
Yeah, I definitely didn't learn marketing on my marketing management course at Northumbria.
It's too fast moving. It's too hands on the job.
Entrepreneurial business management I did for 6 weeks.
I didn't even know that was a course. Maybe it wasn't.
Sounds
in
like
my
a
day.
joke. It was actually a course. Yeah, it definitely probably wasn't in your day. I think it was fairly new. In fact, I think I might have been the first year that did it. But no one that was teaching it had ever started a business, so it's quite ironic. So after the software business,
I had basically been like running that company for all through my 20s, decided to take the leap of faith and step out, which was like walking away from my stable income and all of that. And, went through the challenges of untangling with my co-founder. Basically, I think in the space of a month, I stepped out of my business, which was like my baby. I broke up with my girlfriend of like 7-8 years. I sold my house and I moved to London. Well, there was a lot of change going on, but I was either going to move to London or San Francisco. And I, came down here and just started getting into the mixer and was laser focused on starting a business with someone that had started a business before, basically, or had sold a business before. So I basically became like a full-time networker in London and spent 6 months just meeting all the exited founders that I could find. I didn't have a clear idea what to do next, to be honest. I didn't come to London and think, oh, I'm going to do D2C, and that's where my heart is.
Did you need to work again, though, just for context? When you exited the previous business, how big was that relatively?
No, it didn't set me up for life.
Right.
Yeah, it was a nice cushion, but that actually was after that point. That was like a year or so after I moved to London.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I still had like the dividends coming out of it, and I'd invested some of my money. So I didn't have to come straight to London and earn, basically. But I met a bunch of interesting founders. I met like one in particular who is the guy that I ended up starting Skin and Me with. And I guess the journey to starting Skin and Me was like very accidental. We met a guy who now is a board member of mine at Skin and Me, who has a private equity fund in the beauty industry. And it was really through him I got exposed to the beauty category. There's this whole thing called the lipstick effect. Are you familiar with that? It's like...
I was going to say you've got good skin, so you must have had a great routine and then started Skin and Me.
Yeah. Something like that.
I remember that, though.
I had really bad skin, actually, through school. My nickname was Pizza Face.
Really? Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Ruthless.
That's heavy.
It's proper English school nickname.
Yeah. Boys get bullied. And yeah. That's how it is. So, yeah, the lipstick effect basically just speaks to the resilience of the beauty industry. So, like, even in times of war and real hardship, women will still wear lipstick and buy lipstick because it gives them confidence, and they won't compromise on that. And so it's really resilient as a category. It's a very high gross margin category. It's very standard to get 90+% gross margins in beauty. The packaging always costs more than the products inside it. It's got a really low return rate and a high average order value, and people spend a disproportionate amount of their disposable income on it. In a lot of cases, like quite an irresponsibly, like...
Give me ideas now. I'm going to start another brand.
Yeah. You've got enough going on right now. And so we had a bunch of ideas that we wanted to test out in the beauty industry. There was a trend at the time around personalization. It was like AI was one day. Now, AI's had a resurgence and it actually means something. Back then, it was like everything is personalized, but all it was basically a quiz on a website. It would just send you to a few products. What we tested out was we had this theory that if we could set up this website that gave you skincare recommendations from a real human being that you could trust, and we sent you a personalized collection of products, that we could then hook you into a subscription and you'd stay subscribed to that box. So we did it proper MVP, me and Phil. We set up a site. It was called Mr. and Mrs. Oliver, which is still to this day the limited company of Skin and Me. And people would complete this consultation, and then we hired these skincare experts that would make a recommendation. And then we had this idea to send people the full-size products along with the little sample pots. So the idea was that you would use the sample pots over the course of a week, and we've pre-authored your card. And only if you liked the products would we then charge you. But if you didn't like them, you'd send it back.
Good idea.
What I would do, though, was because we were self-funding this, and these products cost a lot of money, we didn't want to have to buy full-size products and squeeze them into sample pots. So my job was basically every day running from our office on Wardour Street in Soho to Oxford Street, and going into the beauty counters and convincing them to give me samples. And I would go in with my own pots. And they would look at me like, why have you got your own pots? It's like, oh, I've just got like a problem with hygiene. I can't use other sample pots. And I got barred from Debenhams Beauty Hall as part of this. I was going for that long. And we used to send people these boxes. And I had all these ideas around, this is my ideas as to how we could improve box one retention. And I was like, oh, we'll put a free gift in and we'll put some chocolate in. And the amount of people that would get the box, eat the chocolate, and just send the box back to us. But that, as a business model, is really flawed, because in order for it to work, you've got to have stock of every brand, basically. Otherwise, you've got to, you don't have complete impartiality when you're recommending stuff. And you don't have the margin because they're not your brands, and you don't have the control. So what's to stop you signing up on our website? We recommend this box, and you go, oh, thanks for all the ideas. I'm going to go to Amazon and get them for a lot cheaper, or Cult Beauty or something like that.
No IP, really, in a way, yeah.
Exactly. There is a company now doing that exact business model, but they'll never make much money from it because it just doesn't work. It doesn't scale. So we took the learnings from it, albeit we didn't like the business model. But the big learning was that people really like a human being giving them personalized recommendations. They absolutely loved the feeling that, well, they're like offloading the research and the decision making. The credibility has been outsourced to someone else, and so they just have to listen to what we say. And they wanted to get to know their skincare expert and all that. And we were trying to figure out how could we keep that component but build a business model around it which is truly defensible and scalable. And when it comes to high street products in beauty, they don't really work. They promise that they'll work, but you can't put really effective ingredients in them and sell them on a shelf in a beauty store because, a young person could go in and buy them. And so there's really tight controls around what you can actually put in them. So what we felt was, well, if we could get really effective ingredients that are proven to work in clinical trials, i.e. medicine, and put that in a personalized treatment, along with this sort of layer of a human being that you trust, that'd be a really compelling service that you cannot get elsewhere. And so it took about a year of exploring what is and isn't possible, meeting different people, testing stuff out, to land on what is today the Skin and Me business model. It was actually called Gleam at the time, which in hindsight is better suited to like a teeth whitening business. But we, sent out 250 handwritten letters to a third of the UK's dermatologists in order to find our first dermatologist, and just spent a while.
Handwritten letters. That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Really I found a software or a website that does that with a robot writing it.
Oh, really?
Literally, it's called handwritten.
AI takeover.
But it's actually written. It's not printed. That's the USP. It's like £5 a card, but I think it's genius.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Was that Gleam a joke on purpose because there is a Gleam teeth whitening?
No.
One of my good mates has a skincare brand called Gleam In. Gleamin.com.
Well, there was loads of
We've
like
worked with
conflicting.
Gleam is a team
Really?
brand, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
so
it is
funny.
now.
Yeah, I in hindsight, I always think that it's better suited to like car polish or
Yeah.
teeth whitening.
Ah, true.
Shine
Mm.
effect, isn't it?
The reason that we didn't go with it, we were literally days away from spending $250,000 on the domain name.
And you, wait, you were self-funding this at this point?
Oh, sorry, no, I've jumped ahead. But
Yeah.
We'll go to that bit.
let's
Okay.
come back.
Let's go
Let's
to
come
that
back
bit,
to Gleam.com in a bit. So we had this business model and got really freaking excited about it, basically, because we had this idea that you can't get these products elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's a huge industry, 140 billion pounds skincare industry. 50% of people are not happy with the skincare that they're using. And there are skin conditions like acne, which is really debilitating as a condition. It's a huge group of the market that have pigmentation issues or rosacea or anti-age. They want to reduce the signs of aging. But the stuff on the high street, they spend a load of money on, but it doesn't really work.
It's like a generalization for what is an organ, really, isn't it? And everybody has different skin. It's like I can see what you mean. Like the high street has to be generalist because it's selling to millions of people a day. And
Exactly.
Only by taking out that scaled touch point and taking it down to a linear one-to-one relationship can you be as individual as you, and that's kind of emote, I guess. Instantly emote in the business. We do something that they can't replicate.
Yeah. They cannot get it elsewhere. So with Skin and Me, your alternatives are you go to the high street and you buy stuff that doesn't work. You go to your GP.
Yep.
The second option is you go to a private dermatologist. No one in the UK can afford that, really. It's hundreds of pounds for a 20-minute consultation.
Yep.
So only rich people can do that. Your alternative is to then go to a GP. My dad was a GP. They've had 2 weeks training in dermatology. They're not the specialists at it. So they give you general advice. And then you're kind of on your way and you're alone. It's not like you can WhatsApp them and pick up the phone and send questions every day. And you've got a generic treatment that has been manufactured en masse and has been sat on a shelf and is just given to you in the same way it's given to someone else. If you get referred to a dermatologist, which you have to have been through multiple courses of treatment or have something severely wrong with you, you're probably going to have a 6-month wait in much of the UK. There's 650 derms in the UK. In the US it's 15,000. Everyone has one. It's part of the culture. And here it's just completely different. So it was clear that not only, if we can figure out how to set this up, are we providing something that you can't get elsewhere? It's genuinely alleviating stress on the NHS and just giving people a route to treatment that they can't get. And so the path that we then followed was we were actually going to raise a small funding round in order to do the whole 500K MVP, prove it out, raise more money. And we got an offer from an angel investor. It's just the two of us at this time, still self-funding it. Got the one dermatologist on board.
Yep.
We met an investor who wanted to put 250K in, but that happened really quickly. And we were just kind of feel like we want to suss out more of the market.
Probably sounds like I've got a good idea here if people are trying to give me money straight away.
Yeah. Also, I think it was an investor that we knew would hammer us down on valuation and want all sorts of controls and all that. And so we kept that investor as best we could in our back pocket. And we ended up meeting an angel investor that had built and sold 3 successful D2C companies in the UK. And so he'd actually been basically top of our list in terms of an investor that we could bring on board. And so we met him, took a bit of time to get him over the line, but he just deeply understood the business better than anyone. And just through spending a little bit of time with him, we really started to understand, frankly, how, what ingredients you need to make a business like this work and to set it up from scale from the get-go. And we also realized how flawed our 300, 400K MVP strategy was to achieve a really big outcome, basically. So what we did was we still raised a small funding round, which he led. It was less than 300K. But the only reason we raised that money was to build the team, create the brand and so on, to go out and raise a much bigger funding round, to then set up the business for scale from day one. So we closed that, say, in December 2018. I've been working on this throughout the whole of 2018. And we then just went all in on creating the brand and making progress in other areas of the business to the extent we could, and recruiting a really high caliber team to get ready to go out and raise a meaningful round. And we were thinking between £5 and £10 million.
Had you any revenue up to this point?
No.
Or were we just sussing out the market?
Yeah, no revenue.
I think
I've never raised money with revenue,
you're
not
right,
yet.
yeah.
So my
How?
friends call me the
I'm
tractionless
finding it
raiser.
hard to raise money with lots of revenue.
I think the
Yeah,
idea.
It's 2023, right?
That's
the
because
IP and
that's because you
business
get judged on
model.
on your metrics. If you can sell the dream and you've got a really compelling plan, then they can't judge you on your metrics. The second you have them, if they're not completely on fire,
So that's the trick.
Yeah, it's just
Well-
it's like you're selling a story basically, and like you're selling. I think you came up with.
Obviously, you've had
high IP.
credibility from the previous venture, and you mentioned the co-founder. What was his?
yeah. So he'd had a couple of businesses of his own, and he'd sold one in the like early .com days, which was a real success. It was a price comparison site called Calcu, and I think what made a really meaningful. So obviously, when we met Graham, who was the 3-time D2C exited founder that led the angel
is
run,
that? What's his second name?
Boscher.
Yeah, I think I actually emailed him. Was it Tails.com?
Tails.com, yeah, and Grace.com.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, for his decision making to come on board, obviously it was like he needed belief in us as a founding team and belief in the business model. And then I guess for the next stage, which was the big like £8 million round, they needed belief in like what became a bigger team. So we recruited in the time between his funding round and like 6 months later, the round led by Octopus, we'd recruited 3 co-founders. So they were like really pivotal team members, one in ops, one in tech, one in digital, basically, and customer. We'd built out more of the team underneath that. We'd created the brand, and we'd built a 5-year financial plan. We had like designed what our factory was going to look like. We'd got everything that we could get in place, ready to go, until we had that money in the bank, basically. Yeah. And so it's a slightly atypical strategy. And if I hadn't met him, I wouldn't have thought about setting up a business for scale like that from day one.
How can you build a financial plan if you don't even know if the CAC is going to be 5 times higher than you thought it was?
So you can only build these things based on assumptions that you're comfortable being challenged on. And you can use reference points of previous businesses that maybe you and the team have operated in or started. You can use reference points of comparable companies in the US that you can get from Second Measure and stuff like that. And just through relentless hammering people that you know that are close to companies that are good comparables. And like, it's always a good test of a founder, I find, when they're like, oh yeah, this company's killing it in the US. Okay, what are their numbers? Oh, we don't know. Why not? Oh, we don't know anyone there. Like, well, no one knows anyone anywhere until you really, really push it. And so there's always a way to find this information out. And it's basically just a case of triangulating stuff, but having like sound rationale when you're challenged.
Yeah. Interesting. I've just never heard of raising at least in D2C. Just like 8 mil is a pretty chunky amount. Was that largely credibility? Because I mean, I think I would struggle to go out and raise.
Yeah, I think
unless I'm thinking too small.
Well, this is the thing. I think part of it is, well, the starting point is mindset. You can't raise that funding round on mindset, but I'm just saying it did require a mindset shift. And I remember I used to go to different events around that time, and I would be a bit sheepish about the amount of money that we're planning to raise to begin with. And I remember at one point just being like, oh, this guy asked, oh, we're raising, yeah, like how much? I said 5 million. It's like, okay, but you haven't started yet. No, we haven't started. And I think that either goes one or two ways. It's either like, well, you're bonkers, or it's quite inspiring and motivating. And in that case, he found it the latter. And ever since then, it just reminded me that like you just got to own whatever it is you want to do yourself. And no one's going to push you to think big or act big. No one's going to make those decisions and those calls for you. And you've just got to like, just go for it. And so in our case, yeah, I mean, at one point, I didn't know that it was possible to raise between 5 and 10 million, like pre-launch, but I've done it for my new company as well. And it definitely is if you have a huge market opportunity, a defensible business model, and a highly credible team, and you've just demonstrated that you've deeply, deeply, deeply thought and planned out what you're going to do with this business, and you've got like credibility in terms of execution.
I think the vehicle that you're trying to raise it for and the idea that you're trying to raise it for is, and it's got to be compelling. But then conviction and team. We're trying to do the same for an app that we're building on the side. We're trying to raise like 2 million pre-rev to build to basically, we've got an MVP, like we've got an app MVP, but we need to take it to market. So we're going through the similar thing at the moment. Very early stage.
I wish I never had customers. I should have raised 10 mil pre-launch. I guess.
Well, I always say to people, they should, you should raise as much as you can when you don't need it, because you always need more than you think. And there's nothing worse than going out begging for money when you really need it. And
That's
look
true.
at what's happening this past 12 months, frankly. The amount of companies that wish they had. One I invested in, and the founder could have taken on an extra like 600K. I remember at the time, and said, "Oh, I don't want to take the dilution." I'm like, the dilution's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. You're thinking about it the wrong way, and they've since had to shut down the business. And I bet if they could turn back the clock, it doesn't matter how much you dilute.
People are much more willing to invest in you when you don't need the money, I feel. Same with...
Mine's gone now. I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back. Were you building the team? It's gone again. What's going on?
Does that mean this is what mine keeps doing?
Let's be a professional studio. Right, we're good. Building a team pre-cash in bank, or were you self-funding a little bit? I mean, you said you raised like 300K, so were you just building a team from that, and then...
So me and Phil had put 20, 25K in, and two other guys also put in that same amount, but we'd pretty much spent all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, until the point that Graham invested, I was literally subletting 2 of the desks in our little Soho office to make money, and then 9 months later, there's 8.3 million or something in the bank. So we weren't flush for cash, but the route to recruiting the early co-founders was not how much money can we pay them today. It was getting their belief in what the value of their equity was going to be, because they're both walking away from, the 3 of them walking away from very stable careers and earning rates. One of them at Facebook on a really high salary. So, I don't know, whatever Facebook salaries are, but they're probably pretty solid. So you can only do that if they really believe that equity is going to outperform what their earning rate would be in their job, and that they completely believed in the plan in the way that the investors were going to. So, so it was a journey though. It's a journey to and it's a snowball effect. You know how it is. If we hadn't, landing Graham, the angel investor, materially helped both my learning from him and also just the playbook, and also our ability to then recruit people, because he added credibility as well to the business. And so it's all a snowball effect. And once you land a few people and the word gets out, then it gets a little bit easier to add more.
Yeah, it's de-risking it when other people are on board almost to other people, I guess. It's like Graham being one, and then other people, as you get those other high-level founders in, the next one that comes on board is probably if they're in, it's probably not as risky as if it was just one of you.
Your view on dilution is interesting, because I've always been a solo founder, I guess, since we did the little thing, but it's kind of irrelevant in the grand scheme. And some of the feedback I had, I spent in the past 4 months, I don't need to raise money. I raised a bit of angel money previously for the new business, which he was part of. And then VCs started coming to me. I think I said this when we had a call a few months ago. I spoke to all the usual VCs, because one email me, then, they pass you on to the next, and they all seem to know each other. But one of the most common bits of feedback, the ones that said no to me, which was a lot of them, was, "You're a solo founder." And I was like, hold on. I've always been a solo founder. Well, they didn't just mean that. They also meant the team is too small, and, it's probably 6 months too soon, whatever. But I've always thought, maybe stupidly, if I have a co-founder from day one with 50%, whereas right now I've got 76%, having raised a decent amount of money. Obviously, maybe I've been thinking about it the wrong way as well, because I guess 20% of $1 billion is a lot more than 50% of
I think
20 million.
Sure. I think it's just such an art. And absolutely, if you can build your business to an amazing outcome and you haven't had to do that chop down the middle on day one, you get double the outcome. But and I also think that as you progress through your entrepreneurial career, you you're in a different ability to attract the right talent out the gate and do the right stuff and equip the right people without needing a whole load of co-founders, you know? So in my latest business, I'm a solo founder in life supplies because I kind of know much more what I'm doing now. And I've been able to raise the money and recruit the right like hires at the right stage without needing to like chop everything right down the middle with a 100% committed like co-founder on day zero, basically. So I think if you can like skip that out, then like why not? But there's different ways to look at it because you know, do you have it's like it's, you know, is it a constraint to your business's potential at the moment, the fact that you don't have a duplicate of you doing all the stuff that you're not good at?
It is.
I think you'd benefit. I personally think from the outside, and you'd massively benefit from a complementary co-founder that's massively operationally focused.
I kind of feel like I have that with one of the team members though. He's as committed as I am.
But if you'd had that from the very start, you probably would have moved faster.
Yeah, maybe.
Or if you'd had that on Neon Beach, to maybe go back to that way.
Yeah, I guess I feel like my angel investors are co-founders now in a way because I get so much advice from so many intelligent people that have built and sold businesses. You're like the least intelligent one, I guess, for comparison. The least experienced one for comparison.
Yeah.
Should kick them out.
Yeah.
So
I fundamentally
that feels
enjoy
like a
building
win-win.
things with people though. Like, I enjoy working with.
It is lonely.
I just enjoy it. Like I don't really care about selling something for a ridiculous amount of money. Like enough is enough for me. Like I just enjoy doing things with people. I enjoy working with, and being on a journey with other people who are obviously they have to bring something to the table. I wouldn't do it with anybody, but like one founder maybe focus really, really strong in an operational sense or a technical sense or a creative sense, where I'm slightly weaker, and then kind of position around that. But even just like the actual camaraderie, I guess, of building with another person is really undervalued, I think, by a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on Friday at my flat with my new company, Life Supplies, we had me and our team, there's 9 of us full time, and we had a celebration there because we hit a milestone, and it was amazing. It was so much fun, and that's kind of why you're doing it, basically, like moments like that. So I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
Going back to the business, I feel like we could speak about fundraising. Could be 2 hours in itself. I find it so interesting. So, in a relatively nutshell, so Skin and me, we can come on to Life Supplies after. You raise a bunch of money after initial proof of concept. How does the next year look, and how quickly do you get to like decent scale? And what did the business look like when it, you know, over the past few years? It's been 4 years since you raised that money?
What date did you get that, and then how close to your plan did the next 6
to 12
months?
That's a better question.
We closed the money. We raised the money late 2019. And we launched in 2020.
Is that COVID? Post-COVID?
Yeah. We basically launched
perfect timing.
As COVID started.
Yeah. We basically launched during COVID. As you can imagine, it was like kind of it was like not a soft launch, but it just took a bit of time for us to fine tune some of the early niggles because we launched like effectively 7 months after closing that funding round, something like that. But what we'd really focused on with our strategy was laying the operational and the technical foundations for scale such that they were never a hindrance on marketing's ability to scale the business. And so that put us in a really, and we're completely vertically integrated to manufacturing, pick, pack, dispatch, CS, everything.
Advantage.
Yeah, everything in-house, and build a factory in Park Royal. So all of that was kind of in place, and we really did launch it effectively the dream time because people were taking self-care more seriously, and we just had a really strong start. We got featured like on This Morning, and just loads of stuff happened in that first like trading period. Yep. It took us a bit of time to fine tune, you know how it is, the proposition, and just get the right messaging and the right landing pages and the right flows. One thing that we knew we always wanted to do from the get-go was have a really strong incentive in the first month. So with Skin and Me, it's a very, it's like a personal transformation that we're selling, effectively. Like this service.
Selling a PT for your face in a way, aren't you, really? Like, that's what
and think what works well for a PT. It's the before and after photos. It's hearing from people that have like transformed their life, and how does that make them feel. in our case, we use loads of that in our marketing, but we really wanted to be able to get people a full month's supply effectively for free, so that they could like literally see the results. And we thought like that would be a game changer if we can figure that out. And so a lot of the work that we did was in designing our own packaging system, so that it's like this measured dose and it can fit through the letterbox. So you don't have to be in to get it. We can get in the right postage rates. So, we fine-tune our COGS in that first month. And we basically offer, if you go to our Instagram page and look in the bio, it's not hard to find an offer. We basically do a free trial.
Reference point loads. I usually use a reference point for loads of people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm just like, look at this brand, it's good.
So that just means that people can try it out in a really low-risk way. And they try it out and they get results because it does work, because this is proven medicine. It's the only, the product that we put in some of our treatments called, the ingredient called tretinoin, is the world's most effective, it's like the most effective way to treat skin aging. Like nothing has
and
been...
do customers have to, is it like HIMS or something?
Yeah, they do a consultation.
You have to go through that.
They answer questions and they upload photos, and then we have a prescribing team that review the consultations. And if you're suitable for treatment, then they'll create a prescription, a treatment plan, and that goes to the pharmacy where they'll create the treatment, and then it'll get sent out to you, basically.
Is it difficult do you have to become like a registered pharmacy effectively to do that?
Yeah. There's all that fun stuff. So
Is that easy or not?
Well, it's all doable. It depends how you define easy. So we had to build a unit. We had to follow all the regulations. We had to hire the right people. We had to spec it all out in a tight time frame. But we've had stellar reviews from the General Pharmaceutical Council. So it depends what you're doing in it. If you're just dispensing medicine that someone else makes and you're basically just like a cupboard, it's a lot easier. You just need one or two processes. It's a lot easier than literally manufacturing, basically.
Great. I want to sell psilocybin D2C through people's letterboxes. That's always been the vision longer term. Obviously, it's a Class A drug right now.
It's Class A drug?
Yeah, so it is, yeah.
Is it going to be...
Well, look at Australia. Decriminalised last week or something. Decriminalised in most of Canada. It's parts of the States, but big difference between decriminalised and you can sell it D2C. Do you know what I mean? So
significant time horizon, but it's significant time horizon.
That's where I'd like to go longer term, though, 100%. And I guess you would kind of have to be a pharmacy in the same way. I guess you could probably do it in Australia now. I don't know.
Don't know.
It's getting there.
Doing those.
No idea how. It's just that's the plan.
Yeah, fascinating market. I think I told you I invested in a one in the US. The name always escapes me. Guella.
Yes, Mojo. So that's the brand, yeah. It's funny, I've been speaking to, this fund that invested in them. Hopefully we're nearly there. But yeah, I was like, is this not a conflict of interest? Because I'm releasing a gummy. I'm literally a competitor. But apparently not.
Big space.
Take
my numbers are bigger than theirs, for the record.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I picked the wrong
so
ones.
You did. You can still come in. The round's still open.
But doing those hard things, again, is enterprise value and moat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Great place to be once you've done it. If you've got the money, you can get it set up and you can...
Well, that's the thing. With Skin & Me, there is a high barrier to entry because you need a lot of capital and there's just a lot you got to figure out, really. And so there is just defensibility in... There's a reason why there are a never-ending swathes of new skincare brands launching, but you don't see Skin & Me competitors popping up.
Yep.
You see companies that are personalize this, personalize that, but then you dig in and they're not really. They're just another.
How much did you spend of that money before? I guess you got it moving and kind of relatively self-sustaining. How much sunk cost before you actually started selling?
Yeah, I think we had probably burnt through definitely less than 2 million. Probably more like 1.5 when you account for all the capex and all of the setup to get it going. Yeah. And then the good thing about raising that amount of money was that it just meant that we didn't have to think about fundraising for a long time. And we didn't, frankly, want to think about it again because it's such a distraction for the business. And so that was the reason why one of the reasons why we went big with it. And so the business, once we'd cracked that right message and proposition and understood the customer and we got the right offer, we just like really started scaling that effectively. And we have been, you know, focused on the regular channels. Like Facebook's really good for us. We do a lot of influencer marketing now. Kind of wish we'd started that sooner because it's so good for us. And in hindsight, it wasn't as obvious as it is now.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just been a crazy journey, but it's worked out really well so far. It goes down a treat with people. They love telling their friends about it. We get some really like sticky customers who just shout from the rooftops about us, and will like religiously and aggressively refer people because they've had such good results. And
life-changing service, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they go on to we, any day on our Instagram, you can see us reposting people that are saying like, you know, this is the best thing I've ever used. You've changed my life. I've been able to let my partner or my husband see me without makeup for the first time in years. You know, it can be really, really impactful powerful, on people's self-confidence. And so I think that, you know, if you can crack that, the customers basically do the marketing and the credibility for you.
Yep, 100%. It's a snowball effect, isn't it? It's a massive snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
You get more and more nodes shouting about you, and just exponentially grows. So how, in terms of, forgive me, I don't know your broader offer. Are you still scaling like a linear offer? Is it just this kind of one simple funnel? You go, you take that consultation and you get sold on that, or have you broadened your offer and you?
So we added a year ago, we added some additional products like a moisturizer and a cleanser. And another key learning there is that if people trust your brand, they will like trust you to cater for more of the regime. And 50% of people have already taken that up. So we wish we launched it sooner. So it's been great for the business, frankly. And there's demand from customers to do more and more. So we're working on some new products at the moment. But really the core business and what we're great at is, I think the principle of like doing one thing really well is something that we've just obsessed over. Yep. So that's what's enabled us to like one piece of packaging that's amazing, and it does like one job, and we've got one consultation flow, and but it like personalizes and sends you down a load of different paths. But it's really hard to compete against us, on that one thing we've done well for so long.
Quick one, fellas. You probably heard a few months ago I dropped an ecom course, a very fucking guru of me, but it's not that, I promise you. 0 to 1, how to start a brand from scratch with no budget, some budget, a bit of budget. Take your idea from a bedroom to reality to potentially 7-8 figures in sales like I've done a few times, based on my 7 years of experience in the trenches and my current experience building my current brand, Space Goods. It's no bullshit, no frills. We've had like 75 people go through so far. Not a single person has asked for a refund. Plenty of people have actually built some seriously impressive shit. Covers every aspect of the business. Not just the front end stuff like most gurus on YouTube and Twitter are talking about, not just product, marketing, all that shit, but the real shit, the logistics, the back end, the supply chain, the customer service, the finances as well. This covers the whole spectrum, every part, 12 hours of video. If you're interested in scaling a brand 0 to 1, actually turning your idea finally into a reality, then click the link below, go check out Learn Real Commerce course, and let me know what you think. I'll be glad to have you in there. Let's fucking go.
You occupy. I think you occupy a really nice spot in someone's mindset as well, like that expert position, because of the way that they come into the brand off that consultation piece. They inherently, if again, touching on the point of trusting you, like you occupy a position of trust where if you bring out a product, they're probably just going to be like, well, this is going to be the best solution for this problem if I'm having it, and therefore your uptake's probably really strong. But yeah, doing less better is definitely a thing that I believe in. Like, just focus on really nailing one SKU product or one like offer can take you a long way before you need to really start diversifying.
Yeah, could be hard though as a founder because you see opportunity
Shiny
everywhere.
object syndrome.
Yeah,
I'm already
I still
starting
get
to get
it.
that.
Yeah,
New products, new SKUs, new countries. Did you launch just in the UK?
Mm-hmm.
I was going to come to that because you mentioned you mentioned earlier the US market. Obviously, dermatology's almost commoditized. Mm-hmm. Have you launched into that US market yet?
No, we're just in the UK at the moment.
Plans to do that?
Maybe. I think we're still just scratching the surface in the UK, to be honest. There's so much more we want to do, and we're working on some exciting new initiatives at the moment. So
you physically don't ship outside the UK, you just don't advertise outside the UK?
we don't ship. We only sell in the UK.
I was going to ask that question later because I wanted to dive into it quite deep, the US element. But yeah, that was like, we kind of got to now almost. But yeah, what is the kind of plans? You could say initiatives. You got some exciting initiatives coming, but
yeah,
how do you see the next kind of year, 2 years?
I think, you know, we've scaled the business like in a really healthy way and got it to cash flow positive. We just raised 10 million just before Christmas to like bolster the business and support growth over the next year. We, you know, are just trying new stuff out at the moment. We've gotten to a certain stage. We did our first out-of-home campaigns in January. We covered every tube in London.
Yeah, I saw you everywhere. I was going to say, I really liked it. I really enjoyed those ads. A lot of tube ads are really boring and rubbish. That wasn't.
Yeah,
rubbish.
well, time will tell like how well it performs. But yeah, a lot of people noticed it. I've never had so much like inbound, you know, when your whole network is like noticing something.
How are you tracking uplift on that? Are you isolating London as a location and then trying to track it? Well, obviously it's difficult. Like if you're going to run TV ads in America, for example, you might isolate a state and run TV ads to that and then measure your lift in that location. How are you tracking incremental lift off a tube campaign? Because that's something that obviously...
So obviously
difficult.
there's a direct response, like code on there, which we track. But to track the uplift, it is like, you know, narrowing it down to London and looking what the impact is on the blended costs. So I think we did all those tests at the start of the year, like ran all the ads earlier in the year. So I think time will tell over the next like month or two what the impact's been.
A little bit longer tail, yeah. That's interesting, difficult thing to, obviously can never get that granular on it.
Like we haven't, we've got opportunity everywhere. We could go into retail, we could go international, we could expand more products. Like there's lots that we could do, but we're not going to do all of that, but we're going to do some of it. So watch this space, basically. We're still decision making and planning at the moment.
Do you think keeping it one country, one channel for as long as possible is always net beneficial? Because I've just launched in the EU, for example, because I think Germany could be massive. I want to get into retail. Like I'm getting into retail, but I'm already thinking, fuck, this is hard to keep track of and like limited funding compared to some. And it's like one mistake and you could fucking sink it all if it all goes wrong.
I think it really depends on the moat of the business. And I don't think it's a blanket, no, don't do international in the first like 2 years. I think for Skin and Me, ironically, we thought that we were going to do it sooner. And we even built in some capabilities like into our tech to account for us going international. The way that we print on the packaging is like done like dynamically to mean that the packaging can be printed in different languages if we want to at source. But we've never done anything but print in English and sell in the UK. So, and even if we wanted to now launch into a new country, I'm sure that tech work that we did years ago, it wouldn't even apply. Yeah. So back to the point of just like doing one thing really well and not getting carried away. We probably did get carried away. But yeah, I think it depends on the defensibility of the business. If it's truly defensible, then I think that staying like in a single market and just growing and growing that moat and building your customer base and fine-tuning your proposition like as much as freaking possible and then exporting that into new markets. I just think we've all seen, especially in the last few years until the things have pulled back this past year, you can just raise a lot of money and go and do 20 things, and loads of companies screw it up because it's really hard running a startup in the early days, and especially manning multiple like strategic initiatives.
Just complexity. Like there's a lot of decisions. There's also a lot of decisions I think you make in business that are irreversible, that people don't value, like
launching a neon sign brand.
Even launching a second business or doing like making a big strategic decision that's insanely hard to then go back on. If it's like if you start employing people it's not impossible, but it's hard to reverse a big decision like that. I think some businesses, like if you say you're reliant on lower repeat purchase rate, or you have something that people buy once or twice in a 2 year period, then you're going to cap out sooner probably in a market as well. So therefore, horizontally scaling would be a bigger benefit. But I guess your business is set up in a way that you you must have pretty good LTV, pretty good,
Yeah, I mean the economics are
really favourable.
like really strong. That's
Yeah.
what's helped us like like raise this recent funding round and all of that. I think that people often, just back to the international piece, they just underestimate, not that I've taken a brand international, I just think they underestimate how much work there is. Especially it's like, oh, we'll go and launch in Germany. Maybe some of them make it work, great, but like the amount of complexity and understanding the local regulations and labeling and returns and customs and advertising and just all of that. I'd even argue that you're better off, if you're going to go anywhere, just go to the US.
So we're just doing that with the brand that I'm involved in directly. We're doing good numbers in the UK. We're moving to
Very big numbers.
Big numbers in the UK yearly. But it's
Sorry, which brand is this?
it's a brand I CMO for. So we CMO for an e-commerce group alongside the agency. So it's a brand called the Essence Vault. It's like a fragrance brand, but we've just literally this week localized to the US. We're doing like.
And how much did the Essence Vault do last year, for context? Can you say that?
I'm not going to say numbers.
Right.
I can say off podcast after to
because it's way bigger than you think.
Listeners hate it when people say that.
It's
by the way.
way bigger than you think.
Connor said that Connor said on the podcast that our target this year is 60 million, so I can say that revenue.
Nice. Fat.
So it's big.
And sorry, it's a fragrance.
It's a fragrance dupe brand, so it's like you can't copyright fragrance, so it's a dupe brand.
Got it.
And Connor's 27. I always call him the richest man on Twitter.
So I jumped.
You think he was 50? The Don is just like he's also an investor in my brand.
I jumped
he's
into
a good
that
guy.
to work. We're trying to move that.
He's going to be a billionaire, I think.
To build that into. So we own the supply. He owns the supply chain, 3PL, and similar setup, not as complex as you. And we're trying to then take that and build it into like an e-commerce group where we launch brands, a couple of brands a year, and then hopefully, obviously, not every one of those is going to work. Bit of a big vision, but
the next hot group.
Super interesting. So I've always my business hero, frankly, if I were to pick one, not that I think about it as the word hero. It's a bit cringe, but is Bernard Arnault, the founder of LVMH, because I mean he's not
also the richest man in the world.
Yeah, he probably is depending on the day. But his genesis isn't necessarily as a classical entrepreneur, but just they've done that in a really short amount of time. Yeah, and I love that he is. I've got two companies. I'm not CEO in both. I couldn't be CEO in both. I'm chairman in one and CEO in the other. And Richard Branson isn't the CEO of all of his companies. And Bernard Arnault is a group CEO, and he's just got like great teams doing great stuff. And I just love how they can have like such individual creativity in each company. They get these economies of scale across the whole group, and it's like a snowball effect of control in the industry. Basically, it's fascinating.
That's what we're trying to do. Basically, obviously, you got to accept that it's D2C. It's hard. Not every brand you launch is going to get product market fit, but kind of operationalize and systemize that concept to product market fit process.
That's what I was trying to do when I was running.
If it works, you then hire a team and you take it. If it doesn't work, you sunset it and just move on to the next project and try and rinse and repeat.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Do you know any companies that have done that really well?
I know some that have done it in different
group
formats.
I guess they bought a lot of brands.
A lot more do it in a private equity sense. They'll roll up.
A lot of Amazon roll-ups.
And there's a lot of D2C roll-ups now as well. I'm not a massive fan of that because you don't own the message. You don't own the ecosystem. I think you can spot opportunities with the right R&D structure and the right product development structure to build that from the ground up at a low cost and get proof of concept fairly quickly, and then you can systemize the growth of a D2C brand as well. There's a lot of similar inputs with variable change. So like obviously market position, vertical, content, but like what makes a good funnel, what makes a good landing page, it's similar in terms of skill set. So try to build like a hit squad that kind of does the first part, and then have really talented, strong operators that do that first product market fit piece. And then once we've got it past that point, we'll build a team and put it in place.
Super interesting. So would you imagine the sort of people doing growth are coming into work on a Tuesday and working on like more than one of your brands at one time?
No, we'd keep so I think there's some elements of this roadmap that we're early stages in this. Obviously, we've got like one or two brands, the Beast brand that is the Essence Vault, and then we've got a
couple of other ones that are in the works or launched, but small scale. I'd have them working on one project until you got it to that point where you'd then put the team in place, but then beyond that, once you had multiple, you'd probably have teams a bit like an agency structure. You'd have teams in each kind of vertical or channel maybe, and I don't know. Like, to be honest, transparently, we've not got to that stage yet, so I'm not sure what.
To move things along, I feel like we could do 3 hours at this rate. We haven't even got to.
I was about to
both of these businesses. What are you going to say?
I was about to touch on the US. We've moved it. We've tried to move into the US back to that. Tried to move from UK to US launch this week, and it's just I think what's good great in the UK is good in the US for D2C. Like, the standards are higher. You don't appreciate when you're at that scale how much brand awareness has an impact on conversion rate, success, and like how much repeat customer rate even has an impact on your conversion rate on your site. So you don't know what your baselines are when you go into a market. So yeah, to go to that point quickly, I do think there's just unknowns and complexity.
Maybe I should stick in the UK for now then, just sell more fucking mushroom coffee to everyone else first. It's probably a better strategy. So roughly 4 years, what was the growth like? I mean, you don't have to say exact numbers, you can if you want, it's more interesting, but at least in terms of X to X, what did that look like trajectory-wise?
I haven't seen another D2C company. I see all the decks, and we all hear the metrics of them all. Haven't seen one that's performed like close to as well as ours. We've shipped now like millions of boxes to people in the UK. We've grown like 100% year on year in the past year. And yeah, I think it, I'm trying to think what metrics I can share without giving you all the juice. But it's been like, when did we properly start scaling?
Maybe a good way to answer, how much bigger was the second year compared to the first, and then the third, and then the fourth, if it has been 4 years, right?
No, it's been, well, in terms of trading, it's been just over 2 years of actual trading, because we were fully like launched in the summer of 2020.
Right.
So sorry, like 2.5 years. So yeah, the first year was like from 0 to like a punchy number pretty damn quickly, and then we've more than doubled that in the subsequent year, and we're on track. We're on a similar trajectory at the moment, and so the investors have come in on the basis of their belief in our ability to hit that.
And how big do you think it can be? And I guess, and also your involvement, because you've started another brand, which is the one I noticed on LinkedIn maybe a year ago. Mm-hmm. Have you exited from, you completely got your shareholding and you just built the team and moved on to the next thing?
I haven't sold a single share. I'm still the biggest individual shareholder in Skin and Me. And I'm chairman now of the board. So I've got like my board involvement and I support the leadership team. But we've got an awesome team there, well incentivized, scaling the business. And I'm now all in on my next thing. I've always wanted to have more than one business. I don't think that you can do. I basically think that if you want to get a lot done, you can't run everything yourself, and you can't run all of your companies. And the conventional thing is, be CEO for like 5 to 10 years, and like back to my point earlier, like no one's going to make the big moves for you, so you just got to do them yourself. So and it just goes back to like planting the seed early on with the right team. I couldn't have moved into chairman and started another business if we didn't have an amazing team.
Yeah, at a much smaller scale. But that's where, again, I'm in my agency. Like, I'm very top level, very much like removed, very much kind of top down decision making, but probably nowhere near the same level. Mm-hmm. Just strategic. Yeah, that's interesting. What did your path to that look like? What did your role when you first started, and how quickly did you kind of progress to that, and what did the roles in between those 2 points look like?
Yeah, so I mean, I was CEO throughout like all of the funding rounds and all that, and through the launch. My next role was executive chairman, which is, it's whatever you want it to be.
Were you ever
basically
in the weeds of any, like deep into
while I was exec chair?
Yeah, like or at any point were you like super deep on sort of growth, or super deep on sort of logistics, or?
Yeah, I mean, my areas of passion and my strongest areas are brand, customer experience. like culture and leadership. But I'm just like obsessed with like nailing things for the customer.
Yeah.
And it takes time to get there. You know how it is. And so, like I would, I would much rather try to figure out what the right thing to say is to the customer at the right time, or the right creative to be using, or the right messaging to be putting in the boxes in order to deliver like an amazing experience and to drive better retention, than I would be looking at, say, like, you know, the Facebook performance in the last 24 hours, basically.
It's not where your leverage and time comes either. Yeah.
But I also think it varies over time. So, you know how it is. In the early days, you've kind of got to do everything. So I'll be like literally coordinating, like sourcing ingredients and finding a factory and like ringing up suppliers and dealing with legals and all of that. But then as soon as the business is in a position to have people do the things that I'm not good at, I'll just gravitate towards branding, customer experience, basically.
Two strong places, especially customer experience, which I think a lot of people undervalue or leverage. There's a technical issue going on. I think interesting. Then you've obviously moved to chairman, and now you've moved on to new venture of life supplies. That's the only business that I didn't have like actually researched before we jumped on here. So if you could say a bit about that, like,
yeah, sure.
What's the mission there?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been really interested in the personal, like the consumer goods category, basically. And I've always had this vision of building the LVMH of like consumer goods, right?
Nice.
So you look at companies like Procter & Gamble, I've always felt like they can't be around forever in their current form. You know, they don't innovate. They have like these brands that do, like, I think P&G have like over 10 brands that do more than $1 billion in sales.
I think Pampers is the biggest, isn't it? And is it Pampers? Is they own Pampers? One of the two bigs, either Johnson & Johnson's or P&G.
Yeah. I can't.
Both of those.
I think they have Pampers.
Do they have Pampers?
Probably.
Maybe Kimberly Clark or something.
Maybe
anyway,
I'm wrong, but their funnel, obviously, that's $1 billion. That's £1 billion brand, and that funnel is like you get given them at the hospital in America straight away. It's like enter the funnel as soon as you're born. So like
they're really smart at a lot of that stuff. But I'm just convinced that they are not going to win over the new generation, because the new generation cares about stuff that people didn't care about way 100%. Back. You know, they care about the values of the brands. They care about the look and feel of the brands. They care about what's in the product. They care about the ingredients, the transparency of the supply chain, the sustainability and all that. And the companies like P&G, they are retrofitting sustainability onto brands that don't have sustainable heritage, but it doesn't necessarily fly with the new generation.
Yeah, I think there's also a degree of individuality in the new generation, whereas the older generations were sheep. And you can see this, not sheep's like a negative word, but if you look at like
pre-social media, they had no source to follow.
Kind of pulls through to education. Like everyone went on a very similar path. Everyone purchased the same things. It was seen as like normal or great to be like buying the same things or items or brands, and it was like a status symbol almost. And now it's like, I feel like people now really value being part of like a smaller brand or purchasing from smaller brands. Fashion's a good example of that. Like a lot of people
anti-fast fashion
movement. There's the same in like supplements, nutrition, and that's I can completely see that in your mindset there. I can completely agree with it. I think it's like a breakup of those massive conglomerates.
You might cover this when I was having a break. Are you going D2C with Live Supplies?
Yeah, we're D2C only. Yeah, I just think you can get to basically.
Does the AOV work on that?
Well, we're working on that. Yeah. So
yeah.
There is my general philosophy is that in D2C, given how fast the feedback loops are, you should just stick to D2C in the early days, and you can like at least get a 5 million in revenue. I just don't think there's much of a reason not to, unless you've got a very unique business case for why you should not be. Absolutely the AOV can work. The only reason I'm like saying we're still working on it is because we only a week ago launched any more than our first product. You know, at the start of the year, up until like 2 weeks ago, we only had our first product on the website, which is like $13.99.
What was that?
It's a refillable roll-on deodorant.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Nice. So it's an antiperspirant. So
You're going up against Wild, Native,
Well, we are in
Fussy, all
in,
these brands.
in some ways we are, but not
Had Freddie
really.
from Wild
In-
on the
Is
pod.
it a liquid?
It's a
roll-on?
liquid roll-on. Yeah. And the difference between us and companies like, say, Fussy and Native is they're, I don't know if you guys have used these products, but that's a natural deodorant.
Yeah.
I used
Whereas-
Wild because I was going to launch a competitor like 2 years ago. But then I
Well,
thought,
yeah.
I don't give a fuck about deodorant. I'm not launching this.
We make content.
But I did
for
try it.
How did you find it? And are you still using it?
I'm not still using it. I think I just wasn't. First, it wasn't their target market. Which I think their target market is kind of like tree huggers. I could be wrong, but it basically didn't really work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought
So what have you gone back to?
just standard, sure. Honestly, like the most basic bloke
So,
stuff.
so we are the solution for someone like you. So there are 30 million people in the UK that use antiperspirant, and they need the performance of an antiperspirant. It stops you from sweating. They
Yeah.
will not. They can try a brand
Sounds
like
similar
Fuzzy.
logic with Skin and Me. So it actually works.
Yeah. They need something that works, and so there's this. You've got these challenger brands that are like completely natural, and a lot of people are up for that. But like, take that example, deodorant. Natural deodorant does not. Well, with some people it does, but depends
Definitely
on
don't
your
smell
body
as
type.
good.
For me, I will definitely still sweat because it's not intended to stop you sweating.
I think
But
there's meant to be like an onboarding period almost to it.
There is an adjustment
Use it
period.
for like, you use it for like 3. That's don't know. That was a
Agency
much better way of saying
spent
that.
too much time in e-commerce.
Too deep into the agency. But yeah, there's meant to be like almost an like a period that you need to just push through that.
Mhm.
That
But
smell.
Yeah.
but our position is that like someone like Matt is never going to switch to a completely natural deodorant because it doesn't work for him. So we either get him using something that works in a sustainable format, so a refillable roll-on, or he just continues the like single-use culture that he's using, and whether it's a spray or a roll-on, he just continues using that. And so our position is we're not, if you're a 100% eco warrior that needs completely natural,
Yeah.
please continue using it. We sit in the
Like
middle.
early adopters, they are. And you're more, I guess, potentially more mass market.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, I mean, it's gone really well so far, the deodorant. We've only been selling it for like Q1. And it's clear that a lot of people want something that enables them to be more responsible and lower their impact, but not lose the performance.
I'm probably going to take a look at it because
Yeah, same.
that's probably
Mhm.
exactly what
I've got one in my bag. I'll dig it out.
I bought it.
A live on-set sample.
Yeah.
Yeah,
gonna find out.
Are you selling it on 30-day rolling subscription? Yeah. Oh, is it? Is it
Yep.
variable
So
time
people
frame?
sign up, they get a pre-filled bottle in the first month, and we encourage people to take a refill plan. And then a month later, their first refill arrives, and then there's a cadence from there,
Nice.
basically.
And what's the roadmap for that? Obviously, you said did you just launch second product?
No, we launched a range of products a week
Right,
ago. That's
okay.
why I'm saying we're still fine-tuning like how we
Yeah,
get the AOV up, and we've got some really we're running a bunch of landing page tests every week at the moment. So we've launched a body wash, a hand wash, a facial cleanser, a body lotion, shampoo, conditioner.
And you just go in Facebook ads? Or are you mixing it up?
Yeah, at the moment we're on Google as well,
Yeah.
but I just don't think there's a need for us to do any more than that for the time
Definitely
being, basically, and at least until we've got like much closer to product market fit and got the right messaging.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Never tried TikTok.
We dabbled with TikTok.
Doesn't
and
work for me.
We've got
Trying to
so
change that.
you mentioned Jumpstart. We hired a great marketing exec through Jumpstart, and he's a great video editor, and so we had some like organic success on
Yeah.
TikTok, but I guess what we feel at the moment is we shouldn't put too much energy into it just yet, because when we do it, I want us to do it like really well and do it with a lot of like consistency and focus. And I think we're just a bit stretched at the moment.
One of my agencies is TikTok D2C agency. We just do TikTok through that vehicle, and it's we usually say like if you're not spending over 100k a month on Facebook efficiently and have a very clear idea of who your client is, who your
That's
customer
it.
is, that's a really nice package as well.
That is cool.
So you
That's
pop it up like
aesthetic.
and then you refill it from there. So you
Simple.
buy this once.
Nice.
Link in bio. Yeah,
There
that's cool.
you go. You
Yeah.
can keep that.
I can actually keep that.
You can.
Oh, thanks. I was going to actually
Just
order it.
give me a
I'll
neon
let
sign in return.
You would never arrive.
Um,
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice weight to it.
I think it's a cool.
That's a much
concept,
more
cool brand.
convenient shape, because the natural ones I tried, they're like literally flat. It's like rubbing,
Well,
almost
the thing
rubbing
is,
like soap against your arm.
in the UK, so there's this company that sounds like you guys
Is that
know of
used, by
called-
the way?
It's not used.
All
no.
right, cool. Just checking. It smells nice.
Yeah, I respect you more than to give you my used deodorant. But the company in the US that you mentioned, Native Deodorant, they launched a natural stick deodorant. But in the US, stick is much more popular than roll-on.
Interesting.
It's actually the inverse. You've got stick, roll-on, aerosol in the US.
Yeah.
Here it's aerosol, roll-on, stick.
Mm.
And so more people want that format than want a refillable stick format.
Yeah.
So we're super excited to start scaling it, basically.
So that's essentially like the Sure roll-on that I would use, but just in a friendly format. 'Cause it's refillable.
It is, and it's got the ingredient, the salts in it that deliver sweat-stopping performance, but it also has like hemp chives in it. We get these hemp stalks from Champagne in France that provide like an additional layer of protection, and these fermented sugars. So it's got natural properties in it as well. So you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Really cool. I can make sense why you listen to Moise Ali podcast now.
He's
This
hilarious.
feels like
I find him
the
great. to listen
iPhone
to.
of deodorants. Like, you've got a good product design team, I'm guessing. I appreciate product. I think there's not enough discussion. We've said this. It might just be the Twitter sphere. But I think in like young entrepreneurship, particularly D2C, there's not enough talk about product. It's all about marketing.
I think that's
You can't
where
polish a turd.
Mm.
I think that's where it's going to move
For long.
though, as well in the next few years. Like until now, the competitive advantage up until like iOS 14 was just being a really good marketer,
Yeah,
and you could just shovel
exactly.
shit basically. But now it's like the competitive advantage is, it was products still at that point, but you could get competitive advantage purely
Yeah,
through
get away with
marketing
it.
better than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I really think like logistics, products, manufacturing processes,
Just customer experience. innit?
owning those, driving cogs down. That's a much bigger competitive advantage, and will be the bigger competitive advantage for in the future, because it's just like it's harder.
You
to
also
do.
just can't build a D2C brand on first order anymore.
no, you can't.
Maybe you
have to
can with
provide
£300 product, but
Well, you can short term, but it's
Yeah.
very long, very small, short time horizon on a business that
Yeah.
people don't buy from twice.
I completely agree. I love product design. I think that in our case, we, with Life Supplies, could have launched much sooner if we just took off the shelf packaging and did everything like everyone else. But it just doesn't motivate me to spend the next chunk of my life doing that.
Yeah.
So, we raised 5 million. We got some amazing product designers on board through this agency called Pentagram that we've worked with now. They've got equity in the business. We've worked with them for years. And we just don't compromise when it comes to product, because our vision is, if you go into your typical bathroom, everything in there is designed for the shelf in the supermarket. Yeah. It's not designed for your bathroom. So we want to get rid of all of those shouty brands and replace them with stuff that you don't have to hide away when your guests come around, and replace it with the Aesop hand soap. And we can only do that if we cultivate desire, basically.
Yep.
And to do that, we just need awesome design. It needs to be a system. It needs to be sleek. It needs to all connect together. So that's basically what we're on the road to creating.
I think that's a great way of thinking as well. Really great way of thinking. It's almost like a fashion mentality to a bathroom product. It's like a minimalist, clean look.
I would honestly, my ideal for the next few years, I get to the point where I can just sit in a polished concrete floor office in Fitzrovia and fucking design products.
Maybe you should get a job.
Well, no, I should just hire a proper team, but it's hard. It takes time to get there, doesn't it? I'm definitely in the trenches right now.
What sort of products?
As in products for my brand, but like spend more time. Basically, be in a position where I don't have to be in the trenches 15 hours a day, which I am and I have been for like the past 5 years. But there we go. So I can actually just stop and fucking think about, because I'm a designer at heart. That's like where it comes from. I'm a creative first,
yeah.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily a
Creative
product designer, but like I've built competence in, the whole brand, all the products, the website is all done by me. So I never spent a penny on it, which is probably a competitive advantage in a way.
It's a great brand. When I met you, that was one of the things I said. I genuinely commend what you've done with limited resources, and you've created a brand that is really distinct in a crowded category.
It's definitely very distinct, yeah.
You're a brand builder. Like, you are a brand builder. Your brand is a story. It's a connection. It's a feeling within a customer that you cultivate with what you're putting out, like a message, a product. And and you're very good at that. Like, you've proved that. It's like you just need some people to do some of the balls.
Yeah, now I just need someone that knows what they're doing to run the business, so we don't run out of money. So I can actually have like reasons to make another product.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get there. It's definitely product that excites me most, though. Product and making 80s movies with beautiful girls that don't text back.
So obviously you've launched that range. What's the kind of again year 2 year roadmap on that side? Where do you kind of see that going?
Yeah, sure. We want to start by owning the whole bathroom, basically. All of the essentials you'd expect to find in a hygienic person's bathroom, basically. So we're not talking anti-wrinkle eye cream. We're talking like loo roll, mouthwash, toothpaste, hair care, and so on and so forth.
Wild are a competitor then, 'cause I think they're expanding into that space.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess
is there many others kind of in the UK that you think are not a threat, but trying to do the same thing?
Well, someone asked me the other day, like, who's your biggest competitor? And I think founders always default to the other startups. I'm like, well, the other startups have a slither of the market. If you look at any of the Mintel reports, it's Procter & Gamble and Unilever that get all of the sales still. Even though in our bubble in London, it can seem like the startups are swallowing up everyone.
Yeah, true.
So we still look at the big players as our big competitors, and our target customer isn't currently using our like Fussy and Wild and these companies. Some of them are, but most of them actually aren't yet. And we're their first step into sustainability. So it's a huge category. I think that we're doing things a bit differently. So like I said, we could have launched much sooner if we just wanted to launch. We could have launched with, say, just that, but we put a lot of time, resources, investment, and planning into building a whole range of products. And it's really freaking hard. To just the amount of moving parts, the supply chain complexity, the unexpected last minute problems that happen with a thing that you think you're about to launch, and then you find out it doesn't even work, or something goes wrong, and then you've got to retool and all of that fun stuff. So we've deliberately just tried to get as much of the range ready in the early days so that when people hit our website, and our website definitely today doesn't reflect this, like it's going to go through a hell of a lot of change over the next 1 to 2 months. But we want people to hit the website and think, I get it. Like this is just like one click and I can get this like transformational box for my bathroom. And it's appealing and it's exciting. It's not like a compromise and, I'll do my bit for the planet and I'll become a bit of an eco warrior. Like it should be an upgrade, not a downgrade. Yeah. So
and that lifts your AOV.
Exactly.
So strategic wise.
The thing I'm genuinely most excited about at the moment is figuring out how to get AOV up. Yeah. Because it just involves everything that I really enjoy. It's like, how do you make this look really appealing? How do you get the right messaging? How do we convince you emotionally to think, oh my word, that is that much like do you guys know Athletic Greens?
I'm obsessed with them.
Yeah.
I take it every day.
It's problem solving, isn't it?
They are convincing people to spend 80 quid a month
and
on
I
this
do.
powder. Yeah, and you do.
And I tell everyone. And I reverse engineer their funnel every day.
I think that's...
And I copy their landing pages.
Yeah. Have you used Replo?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in there.
I've literally this week... I spent about 5 hours last night.
Page that was like, I've made enough.
So I'm hiring someone to do pages, and I always like to do a little shit test. So I hired this guy off Upwork as a little trial. I was like, all right, do me a test page. He spends like 3 days on it. Little did he know that in 3 hours I'd done a better page than him myself. So I'm like, not good enough. Maybe I'm just a cunt. But Replo's good. It's very good.
Yeah, it's really good.
So easy to use.
Yeah.
It's just so easy and low cost these
Athletic
days.
Greens are definitely one of the good. We said earlier about doing one thing really well.
One SKU, isn't it?
Basically,
I mention them to everyone. I say I want to be. I reference 3 brands actually. I reference Athletic Greens, Huel, and Trip. And I say I want to be the 4th in that lineup of greens, supplements, and CBD. I want to be the mushroom version in what I believe are category defining. Maybe Trip less so, but Athletic Greens and Huel. Obviously, they're not one thing anymore, but I think they did one thing first very fucking well.
Yeah, I bring up Huel a lot as a good example of.
And I've been a 6-year customer of theirs.
Oh, really?
Literally, yeah.
My
LTV is crazy.
It's a good example of a brand that has scaled past 100 million revenue on just native Shopify with a native Shopify checkout. Because I don't know if you went through all this process of should I be headless or should I not, and do all this fancy customization. And companies out there have done all the hard work, like in the Shopify ecosystem, and you can just plug it all in and you're away. And I'm sure Huel have a tech team. I don't know if they do, but the site is pretty straightforward and it's using off-the-shelf technology.
Yeah.
Product again. Like product is so good that it just like,
Exactly.
If your product is
That's
good
what
enough,
people
it will
come to you for.
take away all of the friction only exists if you have to hard sell a product. I feel like people won't bounce out of your checkout if they want your product enough. And
So true.
And it's like if you can cultivate that on the ad or the front end or where they see the product, who sells it to them. Like if you can get to a point where the perceived value is so high, no matter how much friction in your checkout is there, they're still going to buy it.
I completely agree. And I bought a gift for someone. I bought this like lip gloss on Christian Dior a few weeks ago, and it was an absolute shocker of a process. But I'm never not going to buy it because it's like this is the brand, this is their own website. It was like it was built in like 1998 or something, and everything wasn't working properly. But I'm like, it doesn't really matter.
It's gone off.
It has. Just move it a little bit. You were back. Just like, I don't know what's going on with these.
We'll
We'll get the last 5
No,
minutes.
you're back.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Don't touch it again.
Yeah, I think that's massively undervalued. He'll make most of their money off the drinks in supermarkets, though. Do you know the one times?
Do they really?
Yeah,
Apparently.
yeah.
Maybe most of their revenue, but is it?
Pretty sure it's most. Is it? I don't know. I can't remember.
That's
I was
fascinating.
reading about it, but
Super
yeah, it's
interesting.
a significant chunk of.
What an uplift that must have driven for the.
I spoke to some big fund in Germany who didn't invest in me. They said they nearly did, but they just couldn't get it over the line next time. And they were saying that Athletic Greens isn't profitable. I don't know how they know this, but they told me. They said it's 15 years old, not profitable.
15 years old.
It's very old.
It's really.
It's
old.
not a startup.
It was
by any
started a
means.
long time ago.
Wow.
They only
Yeah.
They went through this. I've seen. I didn't know about them before then, but I've read into them since seeing them. Because
I only saw them a
the
year
wa-
ago. Or something.
Yeah, the way I've got like exposed to them is I went through like a 6-month period where pretty much every fucking ad on my Instagram was Athletic Greens 4 or 5 times a day.
Yeah.
And then they were in every single podcast I listened to. Huberman, Rogan, so all the big podcasts, it was them. And then the Facebook ads just vanished. I've not seen a Facebook ad from them in months. And whether they just heavy exclude me, I don't know. And
I get them every day.
Do you?
I'm a customer.
That's it's interesting, but I haven't read into the financials. But yeah, they've been around for a long, long time.
It doesn't surprise me they're not profitable today because just given that I think they raised like over 100 million and they're probably going deliberately heavily loss making into growth mode. But I didn't know they're that old.
Recharge
really old,
told me they had 300,000 subs on £80 a month. So it's 24 million a month.
Probably shouldn't have been telling you
They
that.
told you that?
You probably just got someone sacked.
I'm not using Recharge anymore, so it's off the record.
There's a quote on the website. I think it's Huberman says that he started using them in either 2011, 2015.
Yeah, they
one of
pay
those
him $1
two
million a
years.
year, so I'm sure he'll say anything.
Yeah.
Really? Fucking
But
hell.
that's obviously, they've been around for a while. Longer than you think.
You don't have to pay him anything to go copy and paste and just change Huberman's quote on your landing page in Reflow. That's free for a week or so. And they get an email.
Yeah, that's interesting. But they are. I guess I really like the brand. I'll look into it in more details, but excited to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to just segue into one other thing that I read. Obviously, it ties into a bit of what we've discussed here. Is the a big part of what I read around you and even into some of the articles was around like encouraging British entrepreneurs to think bigger and kind of push that kind of definitely a British angle to it from what I was reading. So what's your kind of thoughts there? Is that something you kind of involved in actively, or is it just something you want to kind of...
Yeah, I don't, like I said, this is the first time I've ever sat in front of cameras and all that, so I don't like put time into media, but occasionally I'll post something and I spend, like I'm sure you guys do, I help like emerging entrepreneurs out, like to the extent my diary allows. But I just think in general, people are conditioned to think quite small in the UK ecosystem, is what I find.
Tall poppy syndrome.
Compared to the US especially, I think.
Yeah, have you spent time in San Francisco?
A little bit, not
Been there a
much,
few times,
much,
it's different
it's just a
gravy.
different mentality.
Yeah, and I know everyone says that, but you have to go and just experience it. Don't just listen to people like us on a podcast saying go and it's so different. And you'll just even be in an Uber and like you're chatting to the driver and just everyone is thinking big. It's like, we're going to change the world and sure, I mean, I think some companies over the last year have had the rug pulled out from under them and they were just like built on hot air and it was all vision and there was no actual underlying business. Sure.
I was literally about to say that.
Guy, yeah.
You spent 2 million on Coldplay at the fucking...
Someone Chainsmokers.
That was it, Chainsmokers.
Yeah, he had a party and spent 2 million of investors' money on Chainsmokers.
I would still back that guy.
Absolutely.
If I had the money to do so.
Is this the competitor to Bolt?
No, it's fast checkout. It was like a
The one-click checkout.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Bolt.
oh,
I
it's-
thought you meant Bolt
Not
Taxi.
Right.
not Bolt taxis. No, you know that Ryan Breslow guy.
Yeah,
He's the founder of Bolt, and that's the one.
Oh,
that,
he's on Twitter, isn't he?
There was-
27 or something.
God, his tweets make so much more sense. I thought he founded Bolt Taxis. I'm not even sure. I've been reading it like that. Just doesn't relate to this
No,
taxi company
definitely.
that I've been
No,
using. while in Europe.
that's some like Eastern European guy.
Oh,
Billionaire.
that's a revelation.
that's so funny.
Right, okay, makes sense.
But I know there was two neck and neck, and
Yeah.
then one of them overnight just went
yeah, they just went bust.
busto,
It was
basically.
him. He was a
That's
lunatic.
impressive.
He's a bit like
Burning 100 mil.
the guy WeWork founder as well. Document. The
Yeah, yeah.
TV
Yeah, well, he's
series.
starting that new thing now, isn't he? Whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Some crypto thing.
Yeah.
But in general, I love entrepreneurship. I love like high energy like founders. I think people just need to have their system shocked a bit. I think the strategy I was talking about with fundraising, it's like, you're only limited to what you've been conditioned to believe by the people that you spend time with. And in London, if you go to founder events, it is in general small-minded thinking.
yeah.
It just is. And it frustrates me a bit because you get like the energy of the people you spend time with rubs off on you. And so I often find that I'm the one that's having to like crank things up. And it's not like, whereas in San Francisco, they make you feel like small-minded. And then you start thinking, oh my word, I can have a much bigger impact with this business. Maybe I can raise more money, or maybe I can take like more risks.
Did you raise money overseas?
No,
Or largely in the UK? Or in the UK?
all in the UK.
Definitely reckon some of that comes back to poker. To go full circle to the start of this, like to the start of this. I don't know if you paid with a load of Americans or that whole process of poker.
I want to get an America trip
Like you
booked
said,
again now.
like de-risk.
Mm-hmm.
I think Americans are inherently less risk averse than the UK. The UK's like
100%.
eternal optimism, massive pessimism. Even when you sell into people in America, take my money. Like UK people are just pessimistic and like always like worst case scenario, like you're gonna burn me, etc., etc. So you can see how that
It is
kind
a
of-
shame.
Yeah.
that
And
kind of reframing.
yeah, everyone's different. Like some founders just aren't like me, and they don't want to go commit their whole life and go all in. I just would kick myself if I felt like I hadn't given it 110%, because I want to know what I'm capable of, basically. And that's not for everyone. Like I'm sure you guys, the amount of sacrifices we make, you don't have any time really outside of running like your company. It's all consuming. So it's not for everyone, but I think there's a lot of founders that could get more done if they were surrounded by the right culture. There's this guy always sticks out at me. We didn't actually raise money from him, but I met him as part of a Skin and Me funding round called Oliver Samwer. Do you know this guy, the German Samwer brothers? You don't hear so much about them lately, but
Samwer.
yeah, they're a bit infamous because they are
Google this
known
guy
for
after
like
this.
they're known for cloning businesses.
Oh,
And-
Oh, is it Rocket Internet Germany?
Rocket Internet guys.
They cloned eBay, not eBay.
Yeah, they did.
eBay,
They did.
yeah, and then sold
or
it.
or was it Facebook? Or maybe both.
I think it was eBay. eBay's the one I've heard about.
Sold
They
it in like
for a lot
40
of-
days or something.
sold it
Something
for a
like
lot of
that.
money.
Yeah. Anyway, I like pitching him. We had a load of competitive tension in the end and picked another fund, but where the like terms were better. But he just more than anyone just like pushed us to think bigger and was like, "Come on, let's go! Yeah, we can like do this in this amount of time." And I'm like, "This is so inspiring." And every other like VC that we'd been meeting was like, yeah, well, where could this go wrong? And can we deep dive into your financial model? It was just like such worlds apart. But he was an operator that had built, he's a billionaire.
40 days, yeah.
Yeah. But he'd done loads of companies
Yeah,
since then, I think. So, yeah, I kind of just love the idea, you mentioned at the start about, like, I love the idea of having some sort of DDC event someday. I also just love the idea, when I've got a bit more time in my hands, of somehow like giving back a bit to the new generation of entrepreneurs and just encouraging them to. I didn't have that at Northumbria Uni or at school. Like, you had to like figure it all out for yourself. No one really like pushed me to open my mind to just like start something. Anyway, rant over.
Yeah.
All right, to come to a close shortly, because we'll be here for about 7 years otherwise. It's a good episode. So on that then, is there an end game? Is there a midterm game? Like, do you have a specific goal with the two brands that we've discussed? Where do you see those going? Is there a number you'd like to hit? An exit position? Something?
Yeah. I kind of came out of my 20s thinking that I've learned loads of business skills and I've made some money, but I've just like really wasted a lot of time, frankly, and I should have stepped out of this business years before. So I set this goal of having £2 billion companies in my 30s. And I'm now 36. and one of them is like valued at a high number, and that's on the right path, and we're on a path to, we've set out a plan to achieve £100 million revenues in that business, and we're on that trajectory. My new business is still in the early days, but it's a huge market. So I want to build these companies to like the biggest possible size, basically. I don't have like a personal number of like, I must make this much. We've all been on our own journeys. I realized when I made some money, a little while ago, that the money actually doesn't. I know everyone says this. Like anyone that's watched any YouTube videos of people that have done business, we've all seen business people say, it's not about the money. The money doesn't make you happy, but you kind of have to figure that out yourself. So like, I kind of know that, but I still want to achieve the biggest possible outcomes. But just because, like you were saying, it's addictive, it's fun. I love creating a new customer experience. I love getting loads of Trustpilot reviews. I love like getting to the top, and I love like winning, basically.
Problem solving in a way as well. Like
I really like figuring out how to
it.
get people to convert their whole bathroom to this and stick around and stay retained. It's really hard, and that's a challenge that I've taken on, basically. But ultimately, I want to be in the Bernard Arnault position. Or the Richard Branson position, in terms of like just having excellent people like running the operation. Because I'm like you. I'm really good in the very early days. I can set things up from scratch. I can solve all the problems. I can do everything. But I much prefer having someone like really operational, like running the company, and then I can focus on brand and customer experience and the strategy and the culture and all of that. So that's the position I want to get into. If we can turn Life Supplies into like the LVMH of consumer goods and have multiple brands in the way that you were talking about, I definitely see us acquiring brands and bringing them into the fold, developing new brands. That'd be sick.
I guess the final, well, you should probably give a 20-minute answer to this, but the final question I do ask people, and it's become a tradition, is if you could give 3 bits of advice to your 18-year-old, let's say, self, upon reflection, what would they be? They don't have to be long, but off the top of your head.
Damn, if I was, how old? 18?
Yeah.
Don't go to uni. I wasted
Agreed.
3 years. Leave the Northeast.
Agreed.
I should have come straight to London or San Francisco. And don't freaking do B2B, because that's not what I enjoy. I enjoy B2C. I enjoy D2C. I enjoy e-commerce. I should have gone straight into that as well. And just like, just like take even more risks, because it just doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter,
Especially when you're younger. Like, even if you've lost everything.
I used to like wait. It took me a while to realize you don't need permission to do anything.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd figured that out at a much younger age.
I want to follow up with my own cringy question that got cut last time. Because you've got one, I might as well have a trademark as well. If you could meet anybody in the world right now and you could ask them one question, who would you meet? What would you ask them and why?
Great question.
Surely Bernard.
I was just about to say, it'd be Bernard Arnault. And I would ask him, if he were in my shoes, what would he do over the next year to set the business up to create the vision that I want, which is effectively his business plugged into mine.
A different vertical and different industry.
He flies under the radar.
Yeah,
you can't find much out about him.
Like last 3 weeks when he's become richest man in the world. That's literally. I'd heard a bit about him, but only because I've intentionally read about him. But yeah, really interesting guy. Did they buy APC? Someone bought APC, which is a big brand today, and they're in the room. It's rumored that he might be
probably
in the running to buy them as well.
Yeah, interesting. One final point on that, which I hadn't actually consciously thought about until the other day when someone was talking through it. There's a difference between premium and luxury. LVMH is all about luxury. Premium is like, you said that basically reminds you of an iPhone or Apple. Like it's premium. It's got features that are better than everything else. Or like, a BMW X5 or something has got better than a Corsa or something. But luxury, you're only buying it because you want to make a statement. It doesn't provide any more functional benefits, basically. And all of LVMH's brands, they don't at all. You just want it to make a statement. It doesn't provide anything more functional, and it's amazing because
it's a vanity purchase in a way, isn't it?
Purely
pure vanity purchase. like perception of other people, of yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like
It's pure emotion, and
Yeah.
it's fascinating when you think about it like that.
it is. That's a great point to end on, I think.
Cameras are dead anyway. I just got the symbol. So on that bombshell,
All right, team.
been a pleasure. As always, subscribe to the pod. We'll see you in the next
Thank you.
episode.